foiled a right-wing terror plot that police say was aimed at France during the European Championships. A French man was detained in Ukraine with a cache of weapons. It's believed he was targeting mosques and synagogues.
Also tonight, Cameron joins political rivals to accuse the Leave camp of recklessness. They, in turn, say it's desperate stuff from a desperate campaign.
Saying goodbye to the greatest, Ali's daughter tells of his final days.
And the school wall graffiti that's actually a modern-day work of art.
This is the ITV Evening News with Mary Nightingale and Mark Austin.
Good evening. An alleged far-right extremist armed with assault rifles, grenade launchers and a huge cache of explosives has been stopped from unleashing terror during the European Championships. It's being claimed tonight. The Frenchman was arrested by authorities in Ukraine who say he was planning to attack mosques, synagogues and other targets in France.
They say the suspect, named as Grégoire Moutot, apparently had enough weapons to launch 15 attacks. The development came as the England, Wales and Northern Ireland squads all arrived in France for the tournament. Our security editor Rohit Kashru in Paris has more details on the new terror threat.
By this moment, they'd been watching him for 5 months. Ukrainian intelligence services say they've foiled a plot to attack France. Under surveillance, this is a 25-year-old farm worker accused of buying a military collection of weapons for a right-wing plot. Rocket launchers, Kalashnikovs, 5,000 rounds of ammunition. Authorities in Ukraine say this was destined for France. Euro 2016 wasn't the target, they believe, but the backdrop for not one but 15 attacks. The head of Ukrainian intelligence said the targets of the attack were, although it sounds strange, it is true and it was documented, a Muslim mosque, a Jewish synagogue, a French tax office, highway patrol points and many other places. But 1,000 miles away in Paris, the assessment is so far quite different. Publicly, French officials are saying very little, but privately, they're talking down the threat. The authorities here have spent weeks rehearsing for the very worst, and given their recent experience, Islamist terrorism was the most feared threat. But tonight, at the largest mosque in Paris, soldiers were sent to stand guard. 2 weeks after the suspect's arrest, this might have been an act of reassurance. There are 4 days until the championship begins, and a country that should be in a state of anticipation is in what seems like a state of perpetual emergency. Well, a month ago, the head of French intelligence told MPs here in Paris that there was a growing risk from far-right terrorists to French society, and he said resources were being diverted in order to deal with it. It might have been that this case informed that warning, but interesting to note that 16 days after this arrest, this suspect is still being investigated by the French, not as a terrorist, but as a potential arms trafficker.
Rohit Kashru in Paris, thank you.
David Cameron joined forces with his political foes today as the EU debate continues to heat up. He accused the Leave camp of guiding Britain towards economic ruin based on lies. The Prime Minister teamed up on the campaign trail with the Lib Dem and Green Party leaders, although Labour's Jeremy Corbyn was not there. For their part, Boris Johnson and the Leave campaign have warned that mass migration would speed up under Brussels control. Here's our political correspondent, Libby Vina.
There was a blue Mini for the Conservatives, a yellow one for the Lib Dems, and even a green bike for the Greens. Labour, of course, had a red car, but it wasn't the current leader, but a former acting one, who appeared with the Prime Minister in a rare show of cross-party support for staying in the EU.
There are many things that we don't agree about, many things we argue about, but on this we are absolutely united.
New friends, but a now familiar message.
Add those things together, the shock impact, the uncertainty impact, the trade impact, and you put a bomb under our economy. And the worst thing is, we would have lit the fuse ourselves.
I'm not going to be put off by people calling it Project Fear. I am fearful about jobs and rights at work and women's rights, and I make no bones about it.
If you poke your head back here, you'll see it happening.
Vote Leave campaigners in a shampoo and hand wash distribution centre in Stratford-upon-Avon were claiming to be the clean team today with a positive message. But on immigration, their warnings were, well, quite negative.
Above all, if we stay in, if we make the mistake of staying in, we can do nothing to protect this country from the biggest economic change that we've seen for a century or more. And I mean the very rapid growth in the population of this country that is very largely a function of immigration.
But many who work in this factory are migrants. Some signs are even in Polish, but they come from all over the EU.
Where are you from?
Greece.
And how long have you been in the United Kingdom?
2 years.
So why employ EU migrants if, as the boss here says, he wants to leave?
Aren't you being a tad hypocritical about wanting to stop the flow of migrants, given how many migrants you employ in this factory?
Thank you. To answer your question directly, of course we want to employ British people. We have almost zero unemployment in Stratford-on-Avon, so it's extremely hard to find people in this area.
But he still insists leaving the EU would give him more control. Libby Vina, ITV News, Stratford-upon-Avon.
Well, Boris Johnson will take part in his first EU referendum TV debate this week. He'll take on Vote Remain's Nicola Sturgeon, the First Minister of Scotland, on ITV, and that is this Thursday. And our Deputy Political Editor, Chris Shipp, is in Westminster. So, Chris, who else is taking part then?
Well, Mary, as you say, I think Boris Johnson, the former Mayor of London and prominent Leave campaigner, is one of the most well-known faces in that lineup, announced by ITV this afternoon. Nicola Sturgeon will be on the other side. But this is a debate in the truest sense of the word. In other words, all of these politicians, 6 politicians, will be in the same studio at the same time. So let's look at who will be appearing. On the Leave side, behind the Leave lecterns, will be Boris Johnson. Next to him, the Labour MP Gisela Stewart, who's also a chair of the official Vote Leave campaign, and then the Conservative Minister Andrea Leadsom. We'll look at the other team, and alongside the First Minister of Scotland, Nicola Sturgeon, you have the Labour MP Angela Eagle. She's effectively Jeremy Corbyn's number 2. She stood in for him at Prime Minister's Questions recently, and then the Conservative Cabinet Minister Amber Rudd. Now, you've already got some interesting dynamics within that lineup, because not only have you got Conservatives versus Conservatives, but Amber Rudd and Andrea Leadsom on the other side there both work in the same government department, the Energy Department. They will answer questions from the studio audience, and then they will have a debate about those particular issues, be it immigration, trade, economy, or whatever comes up. Of course, there is another TV event this week. That one happens tomorrow. That's David Cameron and the UKIP leader Nigel Farage. But that one is not a debate, because those two men will not be in the same studio at the same time.
OK, Chris, for the moment, thank you. And you can see that TV event that Chris mentioned involving David Cameron and Nigel Farage here on ITV from 9 p.m. tomorrow. And on Thursday, it is the big debate involving Boris Johnson and Nicola Sturgeon, also on ITV, and that is from 8 p.m.
One of Britain's worst paedophiles has been given 22 life sentences at the Old Bailey. Richard Huckle admitted 71 offences against children aged between 6 months and 12 years in Malaysia. It's thought he may have abused up to 200 children. Huckle will serve a minimum of 25 years in prison.
A Europe-wide search is underway tonight for a suspect thought to be involved in the murder of a pensioner and the disappearance of his wife.
The body of 75-year-old Peter Stewart was found at his home in Weybread in Suffolk on Friday night. His wife Sylvia has still not been found. Detectives have arrested another man. From the scene, Neil Connery has the latest.
Forensics officers from Suffolk Police have spent much of the day gathering evidence at Peter and Sylvia Stewart's remote home. As their investigation enters its 4th day, the mystery surrounding what happened here continues. Peter Stewart's body was found on Friday with multiple stab wounds. Police are continuing to search for his wife Sylvia and say there's a possibility she's still alive.
Albeit our hopes of finding Sylvia do diminish with the passage of time, we remain ever hopeful and determined to find her, and we remain hopeful that we are going to find her alive. So the location of Sylvia is our primary concern and our absolute priority.
Peter Stewart and his wife Sylvia were last seen on May the 28th. Friends reported them missing last Friday morning. A few hours later, Mr. Stewart's body was found near their Suffolk home. On Sunday, a 61-year-old man was arrested on suspicion of murder. Today, police said they want to question Ali Quasimage, whose car was found in Dover late last night. The couple were well known in the village and were keen line dancers.
But it's such a shock, you know, it's so close to home, on the doorstep, and you don't expect things to happen like that in your little village.
Time is of the essence as the search for clues and for Sylvia Stewart goes on. Well, this evening, Suffolk Police tell me they are working closely with multiple agencies across Europe as they continue to look for Ali Quasimage. Meanwhile, here, police have been granted more time to question a 61-year-old man who remains in custody. I also understand that a property in Leicester is being searched this evening in connection with this ongoing investigation. The police making it clear that their absolute priority is to do everything that they can to try and locate Sylvia as quickly as possible.
Neil Connery in Suffolk, thank you.
Still to come on the ITV Evening News, a countdown to Euro 2016. We're live in France as the home nations prepare for kickoff.
And the playground verdict on the schoolyard masterpiece.
I think it's amazing.
But who is the artist? Well, you can find out along with the rest of the day's news after the break.
Welcome back. Muhammad Ali's daughter Layla revealed today that he was surrounded by all 9 of his children when he died and that his passing was peaceful. The 3-time former world champion died on Friday after complications from Parkinson's disease. Our correspondent Robert Moore reports from his hometown Louisville in Kentucky.
Muhammad Ali put this city on the map. He defined it and never forgot his roots. And the people of Louisville are responding with flowers and with tributes. Last night his body was flown back to his hometown, a hearse taking the coffin through empty streets, and then to a local funeral home, ahead of private events on Thursday, and then a very public memorial on Friday. His daughter Layla has spoken of the family's mixed emotions, of loss, but also of relief given Ali's long battle against illness.
I personally have been sad for a long time. My father's been struggling with Parkinson's disease for many years, and it's not easy. It wasn't easy to watch him suffer. So knowing that he's not suffering anymore is what gives me comfort. You know, I prepared mentally for many years that, you know, obviously one day I was going to lose my father, and that time has come, and I think that the whole world is sad.
Tourists from out of town are arriving at Ali's modest childhood home.
Act like you dodging them. You know how you don't do.
And even locals are taking photographs. A sense of pride, very evident.
He's from right here. He's not from Chicago. He's not from Harlem, New York. He's not from Miami. He's from Louisville, Kentucky, 32nd and Grand Street, right here.
How proud does that make you feel?
Stick my chest out. Make me feel good.
He didn't forget his town, and he would reach back and help others. He tried to help others, pull others up.
And at a time when America's Muslim community is feeling besieged and under assault by Donald Trump, Muhammad Ali's conversion to Islam is even now seen as a powerful message.
Now, it has changed my way of thinking about the Muslims' faith. So,
makes you more understanding.
Makes me more understanding, yes, sir.
Muhammad Ali's life message of inclusion and tolerance is seen by his supporters as needed now more than ever, given the current climate in America. But organisers say the memorial service will keep its distance from the raw politics of this election season. There will also be an international flavour to Friday's service. King Abdullah of Jordan and President Erdogan of Turkey will be here, reminding us that Muhammad Ali was a global figure, not just an American icon. Robert Moore, ITV News, in Louisville, Kentucky.
A British grandmother has been killed in a shark attack off the west coast of Australia. Doreen Collier was scuba diving near Perth when she was attacked by a great white. The 60-year-old moved to Australia from Cheshire 5 years ago.
3 people have died and hundreds more have been forced to flee their homes as storms batter eastern Australia. Cyclone-strength winds, giant waves and heavy rains have caused extensive property damage.
And the former Chelsea team doctor Eva Carneiro turned down £1.2 million in compensation from the club. The offer emerged on the first day of Carneiro's employment tribunal.
Now, there was a warm welcome for the England squad today as they arrived at their training base for Euro 2016 in Chantilly near Paris. The Wales and Northern Ireland teams are also in France ahead of the tournament's kick-off this Friday. And our sports editor Steve Scott is outside the England hotel right now. Steve.
Yes, Mary, Wales and Northern Ireland flew in yesterday. England arrived at their luxury accommodation behind me here sometime this afternoon. As for the mood in the squads, as you'd expect, well, they're all quietly confident, I would say. But then at this stage, before a single ball has been kicked in anger, everyone has the same right to feel as confident as everybody else. Next step, France, leaving Luton with a real belief they won't be making the return journey for a good while yet.
I think the lads are just excited to get started, but the mood on there was as it has been, nice and relaxed and calm, which I think is a good thing.
From the bus, a short walk to 5-star luxury. The smile's always much easier before a tournament gets underway. Never far away, heavily armed security, both police and the army, will provide a constant backdrop to the next month of football. The players will provide the excitement, even though some may be distracted by transfer opportunities at home. Inside, to fight off any cabin fever, a games room and a small library for light relief or inspiration maybe. England are based northeast of Paris, while Wales, who arrived last night, are staying around 250 miles west of the capital in the pretty coastal town of Dinard. Still smarting after being well beaten by Sweden, Chris Coleman has less than a week now to work with his squad and less than a week to keep his star man wrapped in cotton wool. It's quiet in this part of Brittany, but the locals have done their very best to make this Welsh squad feel at home ahead of Slovakia in Bordeaux on Saturday. Northern Ireland's base is 26 miles north of Lyon in the town of Saint-Georges-de-Ronin. No such thing as a day off for them. A squad renowned for unity and an enviable unbeaten run into the tournament are hoping to surprise a few people.
We're not just coming here to take part in the tournament, we want to come here and put a marker down.
This evening, England's squad emerged to stretch tired travel legs at their nearby training ground. The real work here, though, starts tomorrow. Steve Scott, ITV News, Chantilly.
And we wish them all well. Now, finally, how about this for a highly valuable art lesson for children at one school in Bristol? Bridge Farm Primary recently named one of its buildings after the local artist Banksy.
And to say thank you, he left a surprise present on one of the walls during half-term. And when teachers returned from their break, they found a large mural and a letter with some wise words of advice, as Duncan Golestani explains.
Break time at Bridge Farm Primary and kicking a ball against the classroom wall is out, art appreciation is in. The piece being coolly considered and appraised, a 14-foot Banksy original. The exact meaning of girl chasing a burning tyre will be left to the art experts. The critics, though, are unanimous in their acclaim.
I think it's amazing, really creative.
The Banksy was discovered this morning. The school had named a building after the mysterious artist and wrote to tell him about it. So, along with the art, there was a letter thanking pupils. It's always easier to get forgiveness than permission, Banksy advises. If you don't like the picture, add stuff, he writes. I'm sure the teachers won't mind. Well, they do. The wall is staying just as it is.
well, we were down to paint all day outside the wall in the summer holidays, so this will not be getting painted now, I'm afraid.
It will, however, be getting extra security. Banksy's pieces sell for hundreds of thousands of pounds and have sometimes been cut out of walls and stolen. For now, though, there are plenty of eager eyes keeping watch and getting inspiration of their own. Duncan Golostani, ITV News.
You can give him a run for his money, actually, can't they? Brilliant. That is all for now. Tom Bradby will be here with news at 10.
But from all the evening news team, have a very good evening.
Bye-bye.